She had $40 to her name, a sleeping 4-year-old in the back seat of a car that barely started, and a 6-year career that had just been destroyed by a lie. Just hours earlier, Maria Sanchez had been a trusted housekeeper in one of the wealthiest homes in America. Now she was just a woman driving into the cold November night, branded a thief. She hadn't fought back. She hadn't even cried. She just picked up her son's stuffed bunny from the floor and walked out the servant's entrance for the very last time. What Maria didn't know was that her son, Leo, had a secret tucked away in his tiny jacket pocket. A business card with a private cell phone number he was never supposed to have. And that one little piece of paper was about to bring a billionaire's entire household crashing down. Hey friends, and welcome back to our channel. Before we dive into this incredible story, I just want to say thank you for being here. Your support means the world to us. I'm curious, where are you all watching from tonight? Let me know in the comments below. I love seeing how far our stories travel. Now get comfortable because this one is about a mother who lost everything, a little boy who just wanted to make his mom stop crying, and a single phone call that would change everyone's lives forever. Maria Sanchez was the kind of person who always followed the rules, so when she was accused of breaking the one rule she held most sacred, nobody believed her side of the story. Not even the man who had once jokingly told her son to call him if he ever needed help. Have you ever been blamed for something you didn't do? And the worst part wasn't the punishment itself, but the fact that no one even bothered to ask for your version of events. Hold that feeling in your heart as we see what happened to Maria. The Harrison estate was a sprawling mansion at the end of a long winding driveway in Greenwich, Connecticut, hidden behind iron gates that only opened for cars worth more than most people's houses. Mr. James Harrison had built a tech empire from nothing in a Silicon Valley garage, and by his early 40s, his face was on the cover of magazines next to words like visionary and self-made. But James was rarely home. He was in Singapore closing a deal, in London meeting investors, spending more time in airport lounges than in his own kitchen. And that's where Maria came in. She had worked for the Harrison household for 6 years, ever since she'd arrived from Mexico with a single suitcase and a fierce determination to give her son, Leo, a better life. She started as a part-time cleaner and, through sheer hard work, became the head of daily household operations. Not because it was handed to her, but because she showed up early, stayed late, and treated every corner of that massive house with respect. Leo was 4 now, a quiet boy with big, curious brown eyes who had practically grown up in the east wing of the estate. He'd play with his toy cars on the cold marble floors while his mother polished silver or dusted portraits of ancestors he would never know. "Mama," he'd asked once, "why does Mr. Harrison have so many rooms he never even sleeps in?" Maria had just smiled and told him that some people collect houses the way other people collect seashells, beautiful to look at, but mostly empty inside. James Harrison barely knew his housekeeper's son, but on a few rare mornings, between international flights, he'd come down for coffee and find Leo on the kitchen floor, carefully stacking cereal boxes into a wobbly tower. Once, and only once, James had knelt, ruffled the boy's hair and said, "Building something big there, buddy." He'd pulled a business card from his wallet, scribbled his personal cell number on the back, a number his own board of directors didn't have, and tucked it into Leo's little jacket pocket. "For emergencies," James had said with a quick smile, already glancing at his watch. "You know, if the tower ever falls down." Leo, who couldn't read, had kept that card in his pocket for 3 months. Maria never even knew it was there. Everything fell apart on a Tuesday morning. Carol, the estate manager who answered directly to James Harrison's chief of staff, called an emergency meeting in the staff hallway. Her voice was sharp and cold, the way it always was right before she delivered bad news to someone who couldn't fight back. "A diamond bracelet is missing from the master suite," she announced. The bracelet had belonged to James's ex-wife. It was taken from the safe last night. Security logs show the safe was accessed at 9:40 p.m. Only 3 people had the code yesterday. Maria's stomach plummeted even before Carol said her name. "Maria Sanchez, David Miller, and myself," Carol continued, her eyes scanning the room but never quite landing on Maria. "David was visiting his family in Chicago, which has been confirmed. That leaves 2 of us." The hallway fell silent. The other staff members, people Maria had worked alongside for years, stared at the floor, at the walls, anywhere but at her. "I didn't touch that safe," Maria said, her voice shaking but firm. "I was at the pediatrician with my son until 8 p.m. We have a receipt. You can call them." "We will be reviewing everything," Carol said flatly, her tone making it clear the decision had already been made. "In the meantime, per household policy, you are suspended without pay, effective immediately, pending the investigation." Suspended. The word hit Maria like a physical blow. "Carol, I have worked here for 6 years. I have never—" "This isn't personal, Maria," Carol cut in, her eyes finally meeting Maria's. For a split second, Maria saw a flicker of something that looked like guilt, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. "It's just protocol." By 9 a.m., Maria was standing in the mudroom with a cardboard box holding 6 years of her life. A spare sweater, a photo of Leo's first birthday from her locker, a chipped coffee mug. Leo stood beside her, clutching his stuffed bunny, confused. "Mama, are we going home early?" he asked, his small voice echoing in the sudden quiet. Maria knelt, forcing a smile that felt like it would crack her face in two. "Yes, baby, we're going home early today." She didn't tell him she'd just been fired. She didn't tell him the accusation of theft would haunt her, making it nearly impossible to find another job. She didn't tell him they had just over $1,000 in savings and that rent was due next week. She just took his small hand and walked out the door she had entered every morning for 2,190 days. And this time, no one was there to say goodbye. "How old are you this year?" It doesn't matter if you're 4 or 84. Betrayal from people you trust is one of the deepest pains there is. That night, in their small apartment, Leo saw his mother cry for the first time, and in his 4-year-old heart, he decided he had to be the one to fix it. The one-bedroom apartment in nearby Stamford was a world away from the Harrison estate. The radiator hissed and clanked, and the hallway always smelled of other people's cooking, but it was their home. Long after she'd tucked Leo into bed, Maria sat at the tiny kitchen table, staring at the calculator on her phone. The numbers just wouldn't add up. Rent, daycare, the car payment. 6 years of loyal service meant nothing now. The last line on her resume would read, "Terminated pending theft investigation." She buried her face in her hands and, for the first time since she'd walked out of that mansion, she let the tears come. In the next room, Leo wasn't sleeping. He lay in his bed, listening to the muffled sounds of his mother's sobs through the thin wall. It was a sound that made his own chest feel tight. He thought about the cereal box tower that had collapsed in the kitchen. He remembered the nice man with the shiny watch who gave him a card and said, "If the tower ever falls down." Leo didn't understand what fired meant, but he understood that his mama was sad, and that felt exactly like a tower falling down. He quietly climbed out of bed, found his little navy jacket, and pulled the bent business card from the pocket. He couldn't read the name, but he recognized the numbers on the back. His mother had taught him to count using the buttons on the microwave. He took the card and his mom's old cracked cell phone from the kitchen drawer. With the intense focus only a child on a mission can have, he carefully punched in the numbers, one by one. The phone rang twice. "This is James," a sharp, distracted voice answered on the other end. It was 9:40 p.m. in Chicago. There was a pause. Then a tiny voice said, "Hi, it's Leo." James Harrison, standing in a luxury hotel suite, stopped cold. "Leo," he said slowly. "The little guy who builds the towers." "Yeah," Leo whispered. There was another pause, the sound of small feet shuffling on the floor. "My mama's crying. She got fired. Carol said she stole something, but my mama didn't steal anything. I know, 'cause I was with her at the doctor's, and then we got ice cream, and she never went in that room. She says it's spooky in there." James sat down heavily on the edge of the hotel bed. "Your mama is Maria, who worked at my house." "Yeah, she's really sad, mister. Can you tell Carol she's wrong? You said if the tower falls down, I should call. My mama's tower fell down." For a long moment, James Harrison, a man who negotiated $100 million deals without flinching, was utterly speechless. "Leo," he finally said, his voice softer than it had been in years, "can you put your mama on the phone for me?" James Harrison had built an empire on one principle, trust, but verify, and he was just beginning to realize he had never once applied that rule to his own home. He was about to find out that his mistake had cost an innocent woman everything. Maria almost dropped the phone when Leo held it out to her, his face serious. "Mama, it's the tower man. He wants to talk to you." Confused, she took the phone, expecting a telemarketer or a wrong number. "Maria, this is James Harrison." The room seemed to spin. "Mr. Harrison, I am so sorry. I don't know how my son got this number. Maria, stop," he said calmly. "I need you to tell me exactly what happened today, from the beginning. And I want the truth, not what you think I want to hear." So, she told him. The 7:15 a.m. meeting. The accusation, the 6 years of her life packed into a cardboard box. The walk of shame out the servant's door. She told him about the pediatrician's appointment and the receipt in her purse, time-stamped 6:52 p.m., 3 hours before the safe was supposedly opened. She told him, her voice cracking, that in 6 years she had never taken so much as a paperclip from that house. James listened without saying a word, and a cold anger settled in his gut. Not at Maria, but at himself. He had let Carol run his entire household for years with zero oversight because it was easier, because she never bothered him with the small stuff, because he was always too busy chasing the next deal. "Maria, I want you to hold on to that receipt," he said. "Don't talk to anyone else about this. Can you be at my downtown office tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.? I'll send a car for you and Leo." "Mr. Harrison, I don't want any trouble. "So do I, Maria," James said, "and I promise you, I will find out." He hung up and immediately called his head of security, a retired FBI agent named Frank. "Frank, I need all security footage from my Greenwich house for the last 72 hours, and I need the safe's access logs pulled directly from the manufacturer, not from our internal system." "That'll take a few hours, but I can get it," Frank said. "Can I ask what this is about?" "A good woman who worked for me for 6 years was just fired over an accusation that nobody bothered to verify," James said, his voice tight. "I want to know who really opened that safe." By 2 a.m., Frank called back. "James, the logs from the manufacturer don't match the report Carol submitted. The safe was accessed at 9:40 p.m., but the internal system logged it under a generic staff code. The manufacturer's log shows it was opened with a fingerprint scan." "Whose fingerprint?" James asked. There was a pause. "Carol's." James closed his eyes. "There's more," Frank continued. "I ran a quiet financial check on staff with safe access. Standard procedure. For the last 8 months, Carol has been drowning in almost $90,000 of credit card debt. It looks like her ex-husband stopped paying child support." The ugly picture snapped into focus. Carol hadn't investigated a theft. She'd committed one, and she'd framed the most vulnerable person she could think of to cover her tracks. "She didn't just steal from me," James said quietly to the empty hotel room. "She tried to ruin an innocent woman's life to save herself. And I let her do it because I was too busy to pay attention." The next morning, James Harrison walked into his own home for the first time in weeks, not to pack for another trip, but to confront the culture of fear and lies that had been festering right under his nose. He was about to find out just how deep the rot went. Maria arrived at the downtown office building at 9 a.m. sharp, holding Leo's hand. She half expected to be turned away at the door. Instead, an assistant led them directly into a sprawling conference room where James Harrison was waiting. "Mrs. Sanchez, thank you for coming," he said, then knelt down to Leo's level. "And thank you, Leo. That call you made might be the most important one my company has received all year." Leo, looking solemn, just asked, "Did you fix my mama's tower?" "I'm working on it, buddy," James said with a tired smile. "I promise." He explained everything he had learned overnight. The fingerprint scan, the falsified report, Carol's debt. Maria listened, her hand over her mouth, as disbelief washed over her. "She looked me right in the eye," she whispered. "She let everyone think I was a thief." "I know," James said, his own voice filled with regret. "And I know an apology isn't enough, but I am going to make this right." At 11 a.m., James walked through the front doors of his Greenwich estate, Frank by his side. He called an all-staff meeting in the very same hallway where Maria had been dismissed. When Carol arrived, she was prepared to give him a quarterly budget update. Instead, she found her employer standing with his arms crossed, his face like stone. "Carol," he began, "walk me through what happened with the bracelet." She recited the same story she'd told before. The missing item, the process of elimination, the unfortunate conclusion. "That's fascinating," James said, his voice dangerously calm. "Because the manufacturer's log, the one that can't be edited by anyone in this house, shows a fingerprint access at 9:40 p.m. Not a code, a fingerprint. Would you like to guess whose it was?" The color drained from Carol's face. I can explain. You accused an innocent woman of a crime to cover your own, James said, his voice low and cutting. You let her walk out of this house in disgrace in front of her son. Do you have any idea what you did? Carol's composure finally shattered. James, I have 2 kids. I was drowning. It was a stupid mistake. I panicked. Maria worked here for 6 years without a single issue, James shot back, and you sacrificed her in less than 15 minutes. That wasn't panic. That was a calculated choice. He then turned to the other staff members, their faces pale. And I want to know why 6 people stood here and watched it happen. Why did not one of you think to call me? A long, heavy silence hung in the air. Finally, a young cleaner spoke up, her voice trembling. Carol told us that if we questioned her, we'd be obstructing the investigation. We were afraid for our jobs, Mr. Harrison. I'm so sorry. We should have said something. James looked around the hallway at the faces of the people who ran his home, and he saw the fear that had been ruling his house while he was off building his empire. Carol, you're fired, he said, and my legal team will be in touch. Anyone who actively helped you falsify records is also fired. As for the rest of you, this house is going to run on trust and respect from this day forward, not fear. By the end of the day, 4 other people were let go. A household accountant who had helped Carol hide her spending, and 2 other senior staff who knew the truth and stayed silent. Justice had been served, but James knew that firing people wouldn't undo the damage. It wouldn't be enough to repay the debt he owed to a 4-year-old boy who had to make the call he should have made himself. May your family always be blessed with health, peace, and prosperity. That evening, James didn't go back to his office. He drove himself, for the first time in years, to the modest apartment building in Stamford. He knocked on the door. Maria opened it, stunned. Mr. Harrison? Everything is fine, Maria. Better than fine, he said. May I come in? He sat at their small kitchen table, in a room that could fit inside his master bathroom, and told her everything. He told her that her pediatrician's receipt had been the first piece of evidence that proved her innocence. I owe you more than an apology, Maria, he said. I owe you 6 years of trust that I failed to show you, and I'm deeply sorry it took your 4-year-old son to make me finally pay attention. Leo, sitting on a chair with a grilled cheese sandwich, looked up proudly. I fixed the tower, he announced. James let out a real, genuine laugh. You sure did, buddy. You really did. He turned back to Maria. I would like to offer you your job back, but I want to do more than that. I'm restructuring the entire household, and I need someone I can actually trust to run it. Not just managing schedules, but overseeing all staff, reporting directly to me. It's a significant promotion, with a major raise, full benefits, and it comes with a private apartment on the estate, if you'd like. So Leo never has to be shuffled around again. Tears filled Maria's eyes for the second time in 2 days, but this time they were tears of relief and gratitude. Mr. Harrison, I don't know what to say. Say yes, he said softly, and please call me James. In the months that followed, the Harrison estate changed. James started coming home. He learned that Leo's favorite cartoon was Paw Patrol. He learned that Maria's homemade tamales were the best food he'd ever tasted. He learned that the quiet dignity of the woman who had worked invisibly in his home for 6 years was worth more than any business deal. A year later, Maria stood in the same hallway where she had once been fired. Now, as head of household operations, she was training a new employee, teaching them the same values of honesty and integrity she had always held, the same values that no one had bothered to protect. Until a 4-year-old boy with a business card in his pocket decided that when a tower falls, you don't just stand by and watch. You make the call. Leo is 5 now. He still doesn't quite understand the magnitude of what he did that night. To him, it was simple. His mama was sad, and the tower man had told him to call. But for Maria, and for James, it was a profound lesson, a reminder that truth doesn't always come from a position of power. Sometimes it comes from the smallest, most honest voice in the room, a voice too young to understand politics, but old enough to understand love. James Harrison learned that trust without verification is just negligence. Maria learned that her integrity was her greatest asset. And in a house once ruled by silence, a little boy taught everyone the most important lesson of all. When someone you love is hurting, you do whatever you can to help them, even if all you have is an old phone and a promise. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to support the channel. It truly helps us continue to share these powerful stories. I'd love to know, what do you think about the Tower Man keeping his promise? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story. I'm so curious to know where everyone is tuning in from. Drop a comment and let me know what city or country you're representing. And speaking of this story, I would love to hear your thoughts. What part of it stood out to you the most? How did it make you feel? Wherever you are in the world, my greatest wish is for you and your loved ones to always be safe and at peace. Please take care of yourselves. Finally, I truly believe everyone has a story worth telling. If you have a powerful or interesting story you'd like to share, please don't hesitate to write it in the comments below. We'd all love to hear it and learn from each other.